Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
You ever feel like you are the leader or the manager who's always running with scissors or showing up with your hair on fire? Do you ever feel like that? I know I did for years. It affected my business, it affected my family, and it affected my health because after all, everything's connected, right? I learned a very important practice, and I'm excited to have our special guest with us today who's going to share it with you and help you mitigate daily stress, improve your physical health, and improve your business, all with this one practice. And also the word he's going to teach you that will help that monkey brain of yours get back on track immediately, get into the present moment, and really deal with situations in a much healthier way. What I'm talking about is mindfulness and meditation. And no, today's guest is not a monk, although he was trained by one at the age of 12. Today's guest is an engineer, very left brain, a business owner and entrepreneur, and a coach. He's also the director of LGSE Partners and also an expert on the Manufacturing Masters platform. I am talking about none other than Lalith Gunaratne. This man is quickly going to become one of my new best friends. I learned so much from him, and I know you are going to as well. What he's going to teach you are some simple techniques to mitigate daily stress. They do not involve wearing a robe or rubbing crystals on your forehead or anything like that. It's just a simple technique. And the thing that's so cool about it is it's portable and it's free. And we're going to teach it to you today. So thank you for spending some time on yourself and your business today, for investing some time with me and with Lalith. You are going to walk away from this episode feeling excited and different, and like you have got this new super tool that will help you stop running with your hair on fire. Everybody, here we grow. Well, Lalith, this is something I've been looking forward to for quite a while. And I'm just so grateful that you're here with us. I think this is going to be a very moving episode for anyone listening.
Thank you, Allison. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, you know what's so amazing about you, and why I think manufacturers who are listening to this will really, I think their ears are going to perk up here. You are not just a coach and mindfulness expert. You're an engineer by trade and an entrepreneur. So I feel like you are this perfect storm, if you will, or unicorn, to bring this idea of mindfulness and, you know, the person who can really help manufacturers mitigate stress in some ways that they may not have considered before. Am I putting it okay?
Yes, absolutely. And I've been a manufacturer myself. My business career started with a solar photovoltaics manufacturing plant in Sri Lanka with a Canadian technology. So I ran a company with two other partners manufacturing solar modules back in the 1980s. So that's how my business life started. So I can fully relate to the challenges that business owners, managers, leaders face on our day-to-day lives, because unlike if you look at the whole leadership function, it requires on one side managing, on the other side leading, and those are two distinctly different things. And managing, of course, are most things that we can measure, but the leadership part are those things that we cannot quite measure. It's about inspiring our people to action. So So that requires us to manage ourselves first, manage our own emotions first.
Mhm.
So, and another caveat is the fact that we have to also know ourselves too. We have to know what our trigger points are, what makes us tick, and all of those things. So there's a self-reflective process that's really important for a good leader. So that's where the mindfulness process comes in, because that's that self-reflective process, the practice, which is often thought of as a woo-woo practice, right? Because
Right.
when you say mindfulness and meditation, you're looking at a monk sitting cross-legged,
Right.
and all of those images conjure up. So when we are hardcore stuck on the left hemisphere of the brain, as most of us engineers are, getting things done, everything else seems so esoteric and out of our comfort zone. So that's not the case. All I'm talking about simply is focusing on our breath, our life force. That's all. This is our breath we are talking about. If I can train myself to focus on my breath in the middle of a crazy busy day when all the storms are hitting at one point, and then you need to gain a little bit of space, all I do is I just take a deep breath and say, observe to myself. And say, observe to myself. Immediately, what I have done is I've shut out the past, I've shut out the future, and I've become present to the here and now.
Exactly.
And
Well,
another thing, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Allison.
No.
Yes,
I want you to go ahead,
yes.
and then I'm gonna ask you a question, because I want you to explain this to people a little bit more.
Great. Okay. So the other thing that happens as soon as you take that intentional deep breath is that you align your mind and your body. We are at our best, at our strongest. We are at our most clarity of what's going on around us when our mind and body are together, and we are in control then, right? Otherwise, our mind is all over the place, right? It's being taken. So we have our five senses that takes our mind all over the place. That's a window to the world, right? So imagine that you're sitting on a chariot and you got five, or rather I say six, because intuition is another one. Six different horses are in front of you going in their own direction. That's our mind at any given moment. The attention of our mind is being taken through the senses in different ways at any given moment. So as soon as I took that deep breath and say, observe, I reined in all those horses and I told the horses, okay, look, I want you to go where I want you to go. So I'm just basically telling my mind then, hey, I'm taking control of the mind right now. That gives me the space. That means gives me the space to think critically about what's going on. What is going on here? How is this happening? Why is this happening? Quickly ask those questions. And that little bit of space also cuts that emotion that somebody has grabbed your attention with because somebody's done something and you got angry and bang, you're in somebody else's world right now. You have been able to cut that and get into yourself and say, okay, right, that was not a nice thing that I heard from you, but I'm in control. I don't lose control.
So I want to point out one, I think the biggest takeaway from what you just said, and this is based on, I'm being gestalt, so this is based on my experience as well, awareness.
Yes.
To me, that's the word, and maybe that's just for me, maybe that makes sense, but becoming more aware of yourself, I have a lot of friends that call it their monkey brain.
Yes. Yes.
And when you describe it like horses and chariots, that makes so much sense, because that's exactly what's happening, right? We're past thinking, we're future thinking, we're definitely not in the present moment.
Yes.
So if we can become the first, they always say what the first stage is awareness. So
yes.
being aware of that, first of all, oh, my monkey brain is in control right now. What do I want to do? That's the awareness. Second,
yes.
what do I want to do about that? Rein it in.
Exactly.
And like you talked about, taking that deep breath, which is free, by the way, everyone, your breath is free.
There we go.
It doesn't cost. You don't have to take a pill. Not that that's a bad thing, because I do take medication for some anxiety. But the point I'm trying to make is that your breath is always with you. It's portable and it's free. So take advantage of it. And I would love it if you would explain, because you explained to me earlier, and I think this is going to click with our listeners. Explain the science, and this is quick. You listening or watching this, like you're gonna want to hear this. It's a fast explanation about left brain, right brain, and how this is not woo woo, which I think a lot of people think, like you said, oh, meditation, mindfulness, you know, I that's not for me, so you dismiss it. Talk to us for a minute about the science behind this and how the left brain, right brain thing works.
Great. So, Allison, what's most exciting is that this ancient practice that's come from thousands of years ago is now validated through much research, especially in North America right now.
Yeah.
So there are things that are happening, that there's technology that can peer into our brains to see what happens to long-term meditators. And it's clear that part of our brain, which is the executive function, gets larger with long-term meditators. So that's the best news, right?
That?
Yes, and
larger.
So the executive function of the brain that can put things in perspective, the neocortex part of the brain, increases in size for long-term meditators. The other thing is, most of us living in this world where in the last 200 years we've been focused on the left hemisphere of the brain through the STEM education, what we need to do to perform. And we have let go of all the beautiful things like poetry and dance and music, and they're not important anymore in our mainstream life. Most important is getting things done, being efficient, being effective, and all that. So that has sent us into the left hemisphere of the brain, where there are two antennae called the amygdala that's on both the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. These antennae are constantly up for most of us because we are taught from a young age that the world is a dangerous place. The world is a competitive place, that we got to fight for our place. And that puts fear into us. And that fear is what has created the general anxiety, the slow burn of anxiety that all of us feel in our day-to-day lives right now. And what has happened is the left hemisphere of the brain is very efficient at getting things done. It takes shortcuts. It's objective oriented. However, there are a couple other things too. It wants its own way. It can be tyrannical. It scolds us. It constantly puts doubt in us. And that is a huge issue for the whole world, where most of us in the urban world who have been educated are stuck on the left hemisphere, because the left part of the brain also does not let it go, let us be. It's constantly holding us prisoner, trapped in the left hemisphere of the brain, because we think we need to control everything, because if we let go, that things will go haywire. So that's where most of us are at. And that is a very stressful place to be. And it's also very narrow in the focus, because it's stuck on a certain ideology. It's stuck on certain dogma. It doesn't like to be outside that box, because it just wants to get things done. And for a business leader, that's a very, very poor place to be, because we have to be creative and open-minded. We have to be able to put things in context. We have to pay attention to what's going on all around us, so we can take action to mitigate some of the issues that may come up that we get blindsided with otherwise. So there are the two scientists that I've been following. One, a woman called Jill Bolte Taylor, who at 37, a Harvard neuroscientist, who had a stroke when she was 37. And she has been able to study on herself and get a cohort of others to work with her as she recovered, when she realized that it was the left side of the brain that had got flooded with blood in that stroke. So she was feeling a sense of bliss and calm as she was being wheeled in to the hospital. And she was thinking, okay, now I realize it's the left hemisphere. If it happened to the right hemisphere and her left hemisphere was alive, I don't think she'd be alive right now, because she would have worried herself to death, saying, I had a stroke. That's the end of me. This is it. Because that's what the left brain is all about. It takes you down that rabbit hole of negativity, because it's constantly pushing you to get things done. Exactly. So now the modern neuroscience, because they've done so much of research with stroke patients, but then now they have the ability to shut the left and the right. So there's another doctor, psychiatrist, neuroscientist called Ian McGilchrist. He's a Scottish bear of a man who is amazing to listen to, lives in the Isle of Skye in Scotland. And the books that he has written, the first book is called The Master and the Emissary. Basically, he shows that the master in the modern world is the left hemisphere. This is why we're facing all the conflict, the stress, the suicides, and all of that is related to the fact that we are stuck on the left hemisphere of the brain. What he says is the master should be the right hemisphere, which should be the manager of all these things to become whole brain. The right hemisphere should be the part that hands over the work to the left hemisphere to get it done, but stay in control. And what's so interesting now is the whole practice that enables us to get to the right hemisphere of the brain. They're saying is mindfulness, to become aware, take a deep breath, shut the left side down, and take control of the mind and the body. As I said, as soon as I take a deep breath, I take control of the mind and body. I can tell my left brain to shut up. Right? Just imagine at the end of the day,
Right.
you come home from a busy day, you get a glass of wine, and beautiful summer day, you go to the back deck with a loved one even, and you sit there and you're now just settling in to enjoy this glass of wine, right? What happens? Your left brain says, hey, get back here, man. Like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this tomorrow. All of those things, your left brain does not like you to ignore it now. So this is what happens, right? Try it out and see.
It's
right?
true. I'm a believer.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So now if I can become conscious and say, hey, shut up, left brain, I'm just going to enjoy this beautiful time. It may be 10 minutes, but I'm just going to enjoy it. But the thing is, the mind has a mind of its own, and it's incorrigible. It's like a 2-year-old running all over the place. So you need to also have a practice, like anything else. Like if you're learning to play the piano, you got to learn the scales. You know what C sounds like, you know what F sharp sounds like. Then you can make music once you have the consonance between the sound and the keys. Then you can play music. So even with mindfulness, one needs to practice on a daily basis to make that breath your best friend. You got to keep practicing it. Now, mindfulness and meditation is also touted as it's going to solve all the problems of the world. No, it's not going to solve all the. It's going to be another tool that you have in your toolkit. And I also want to throw in another warning label, because many of us have had difficult childhoods and we've been bullied and all of that too. What a meditation practice sometimes can do is to well up some of those feelings that we have suppressed over the years to get on with life. And then that's fine. That's the way we cope. So I always say, though, when you sit down and try to do this practice, if those feelings are coming up, you need to then seek some help too, if you want to go ahead with the practice, right? So like anything else, it's got its pluses and minuses, right? When you're doing something. However, the general notion that it's our breath, it's our life force. When I can make my breath my best friend, it's there for you, working with you, because it is you at the end of the day. So what I say is I advocate people who have busy lives again to, if you're a morning person, if you get up at 6 a.m, get up at 5 to 6, do your thing, and then find a place that I call a sacred place. You sit down, because you got to get out of bed. It's intentional. You can sit on a chair, or if you want to sit on a cushion cross-legged, that's a good way to make sure your posture is good. Your spine is erect then, right, when you're sit cross-legged on a nice cushion. So what you're doing is, I say to put an alarm for 2 minutes. Just close your eyes for 2 minutes and see what happens. Now, for many people who are leading these busy lives stuck on the left hemisphere of the brain, those 10 minutes may seem like 2 minutes may seem like 10 minutes. And
or
your
an
mind, an hour, your mind's going to take away and say, what are you doing? I got to do this. I got to do this. Well, you're wasting your time here.
Yeah.
Your left brain is going to be attacking you, for some of us, to get you off that seat. to stop this, because it knows that, okay, this guy is taking control. This person is taking control of their mind, and this is, so we are going to get. I'm just sort of putting it out there in terms of giving the left hemisphere personality, but that's in effect what happens. So you need to then. So what I say is, don't even focus on your brain. Just sit there for 2 minutes on the first day and watch where your mind goes.
Mm-hmm.
Just see where it goes. If you want to pay attention to 2 or 3 breaths, but just watch. And then at the end of the 2 minutes, great, right? You've established a practice now, and you continue this for at least 21 days. And if you feel that, okay, now I can overcome the 2 minutes, maybe I push it to 3 minutes, because we, yep, as human beings, we push boundaries and we grow. Put it for 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, 5 minutes, and see what happens. And after 21 days, you might feel less self-conscious about the practice. Because, for many of us to even admit the fact that we're going to sit, in a chair and close our minds and do a bit of a meditation may seem so outside the normal scheme of things. For those, just do it on your own. Nobody has to know, and see what happens to you.
It's so true. And I will share a super quick personal testimonial here. I started working with a business coach, probably 13 years ago. And he said, "What does your sacred space look like in the morning?" And I looked at him and I said, "My what?" And he said, "Your sacred space." And I said, "I'm a mom with 2 young kids and a spouse and a business. There's no time for that. First of all, I don't even know what that would look like. Secondly, I was laughing out loud and I said, I don't have the time."
Yes.
And what he taught me, thank goodness that this happened when it did, was what you're saying. And he said, "Try this." So for anyone listening or watching this, and you're feeling the same way, right? Especially, I'm going to go out on a limb here, especially if you're a woman. And oftentimes you have more responsibilities, possibly with the kids in the morning. Maybe your mate is able, they leave earlier than you do, that type of thing. So, and plus this, I can relate to you. So that's why I'm saying that. Wake up, even if it's 5 minutes earlier than normal. 5 to 10 minutes. We can all do that, right? Even though we're exhausted or whatnot. 5 to 10 minutes. And do what Lalith is saying here. Give a try where I sometimes just go sit down on the couch and I just sit and I'm quiet, and literally for, even if it's 60 seconds. Now you can do this in your car. And what this coach taught me, I used to show up at my office like my hair was on fire, right? This is first thing in the morning. I'm the leader of the business. This is not good. I'm so caught up in what just happened and what's gonna happen. And this went on for years. And it was very stressful. And learning to, first of all, see it, recognize it, be aware. That's number 1, what I've learned. Number 2, I call it stop, drop, and don't think. So just stop, close your eyes, be still. You don't have to think about shit, right? You can just be, even if it's for 60 seconds. And your breath it's one of the most powerful tools I have ever experienced. And who knew, right? This portable thing that's inside me all the time. Wow. So what you're saying, yes. I am living proof.
Yes. Yes.
For anybody listening or watching that thinks this is a bunch of hoo-ha, or, I don't have time for that, that's not going to help me. Oh man, this is very powerful. And like I said before, it's free. So listen to this man, because this really works. And I wanted to ask you, is I know a lot of us are looking for instant gratification,
Mhm.
but what I know from experience and from reading a lot of your beautiful work is that this is a long-term practice. And I
Yes.
love the word
Yes.
practice. Like I started doing
Yes.
yoga years and years ago. And what I loved about it was that every time the teacher would say, this is just a practice, it's you with you. And I feel like that's the same with meditation. Do you agree? And also the long-term idea, right? This isn't going to fix things in 1 minute.
Absolutely, absolutely. Alison, that's a beautiful story of your own transformation with this practice, because this is what it is at the end of the day. Because the other part of this, the importance of this practice is our health and well-being.
Yes,
Because
because it's all
when we
connected.
are exactly when we are living in this anxiety-filled world, we are constantly, our blood pressure is up, our heart rate's up, and our digestive system is compromised.
Yep.
Why do you think we have an epidemic of autoimmune disease and cancers right now,
And obesity.
and obesity and all of that? Because so it's stress related, right?
Yes.
So if I can mitigate my stress and manage my stress, and stress is important. I mean, there's stress. We're not gonna never get rid of stress, but
Right.
it's about managing our bodies and minds through the stressful life that we lead, is also giving us much more of an ability to deal with even the most difficult of situations. Because that's, so I often work as a coach with business leaders who are coming to me as a result of a perfect storm of issues have happened now, and they're going down a spiral. Their family relationships, including their business, they cannot now put things in perspective, and they put the business at risk now as a result of that personal issues that has come about with a whole range of issues coming at you. It could be interest rates, losing customers, it could be the pandemic, all of those things and it could be a family issue, whatever it is that can take us down that rabbit hole. The ability to mitigate some of that stress and having some tools to do that is the most important for us as business leaders. Because the energy that we bring into the workplace or even the family, the moment we get up in the morning and go down and they know that, so and so is in a bad mood,
Yep.
it just spreads.
Yes.
Right? And
Like
you bring it to
wildfire.
work, it spreads. So the importance of understanding that. So the more meditation I do, the more I realize the energetic sort of the feel that I transmit from who I am. And so those are things that are down the road too. When you have a longer term practice, that you will feel, wow, okay, you know what? I'm feeling this right now. I've got to a level where I can identify, I'm going to the left side of the brain right now, when I should. I am identifying myself as, okay, I'm feeling that I'm whole brained, and I feel whole, I feel in control. So you get to a stage where you're able to identify some of those emotions that otherwise when you're on autopilot, you just go, right? So I use a couple of metaphors. One metaphor is like, it's called the 3-arrow metaphor that I use. The first arrow, you cannot help. Somebody cuts you off on the road. Somebody says something to you. Something happens. The first arrow is life happening to you. There is no control over that. It's uncertain out there. It's impermanent out there. We have no way of controlling that. But it's the second arrow that we can catch. If I can catch the second arrow before it goes and rankles me, gets my ego involved and gets me defensive and angry and all of that, and that's where the breath comes in for me. Breathe and observe. And doing it with a family member at first, it could be a parent, sibling, spouse, child. That's where we need to practice it. That's where we indulge mostly, because we don't care, right? We become familiar. If we can start working at home first with our loved ones, the closest people to us, and because at work, at the professional world, we tend to control ourselves better, but we do control ourselves also at the peril of suppressing emotion, right? There are other issues that arise from us going to the world out there. Yes, this warrants me getting angry, but at home, yes, I burst out. But in my professional life, I cannot burst out, so I internalize it. and
Yes.
it becomes a pressure cooker that's building up, right? So as soon as I learn to bring my breath in, okay, let me just put this in perspective. Let me become aware, and as soon as I become aware, I can pay attention. That's the second part of awareness, is pay attention,
Yep.
right? When I pay attention, then I can take some action that is going to be much more skillful rather than a reaction that you're going to regret later. So this is the way it can help us. So the body part of it too, in terms of health. Now you're going to ask a question.
The
Yes.
third arrow. What's the third
Third
arrow?
arrow. Third arrow is if you let the second arrow, thank you for asking me, second arrow go in, the mood sets in. It sets the stage for the rest of the day. Because you got to remember now, if you get cut off on the road and it was a dangerous move somebody else made, and you get on the horn and just chasing that person, the person goes off and you need to get to work at 8 o'clock and you now go in there. But now you got to remember now, by now, your blood pressure has gone up, your heart rate has gone up, your digestive system has stopped. Cortisol and adrenaline have entered the system now. You're tingling now. And you just imagine you go into the parking lot, get out of the car, your body's tingling, and you're now thinking, conjuring up all the images of, if I caught a hold of him, all of those images. And then you're now just taking the elevator up to your desk and you're sitting yourself down. This stuff's going to be with you for 6 to 7 hours. The cortisol and adrenaline is going to be with you for 6 to 7 hours.
Did everyone hear that?
Yes.
6 to 7 hours.
Exactly. For the rest of the day, you're going to get triggered so easily. You're going to be narrow-minded in your process, because when you're angry and anxious, and this is still playing out, it ruminates, right? I was such a dangerous move. If I didn't do that, I'd have, killed him and killed myself and killed other people. All of those things going on and on and on and on. So you're busy with getting things done. The moment you relax, this comes up, right? Yeah. It plays out like a broken record, and it takes about 6 to 7 hours for it to dissipate. So this is why if that happened to you, I would run around the block and come back and drop. I run up the stairs, because we are still hunter-gatherer in our physiology. All of these things that are around us is 150, 200 years old. Our grandparents or parents may have been working in the fields, right? Working physically for their livelihoods, right? So this sedentary life has happened only in the last 100, 150 years. And our bodies are not made for that. And this is the worst thing, right? So we are not dissipating these anxious energies and angers and emotions in a way through our day-to-day physical life. And if you have a job which is physical, yes, that mitigates it. But most of us here are sitting on a desk in front of a screen. Right. And that's the worst thing to do, right? So then you're compromised in the way you're thinking as a result of that emotion that arose in you. So this is why you need to then take some active measures, breathing and some physical arrow, exercise. Right? Yeah, to get us going into the third arrow, right? And the other thing is too, in our hunter-gatherer days or whatever it is, if a saber-toothed tiger showed up, you have to do something physical, either run hard or run up a tree or fight it. So that's that physical activity that'll either kill you or keep you going. But it'll dissipate that energy, because all the blood flows when we get angry to the extremities of our body. It strengthens our muscles, really. And that's why it shuts down the digestive system.
Interesting.
So there's a design flaw for us for a modern world. And knowing these things then makes us smarter the way we live, these little tricks.
Yes.
And I've been fortunate that I was taught these things at a very young age. And I'm 65 years old now, and I can still do a lot of things that a 30-year-old does because of the practice that I've had all my life. So that practice has been a combination of things. Physical exercise in the morning, which was hardcore physical stuff. I lifted weights those days. But luckily, my spouse, my partner came into my life. She's a yoga teacher. She started telling me, you can't stretch, you're so stiff. So for 30 years, I've been having a yoga coach. So I brought in a lot of stretching exercises into my exercise routine. And then, of course, my meditation practice is there, where my breath now is there with me all the time. I am in a constant meditative awareness I wouldn't say all the time, most of the time. Even when I'm driving a car or when I'm doing something, even as I'm talking to you, I'm aware of my breath. And if you can get to that place, then it's going to be rare that you're going to get blindsided with something.
Yes.
Right. So that is the other important part for us as business leaders, because we don't want to get blindsided. We can constantly be aware of the big picture and see what's going on, and read body language of people around us, see the trends, understand things. And when you also quiet your mind, your intuition goes up too. That's another thing that a lot of people see is woo, because it also comes through a martial arts practice too, right? So I also did martial arts at a young age. I did kung fu, where meditation was an integral part of it. And part of the martial arts practice is that if I don't intuit which hand or which leg comes up, by keeping my mind quiet and aware, by reading the subtle movements of the person, I'm going to get whacked. So that's why the meditation practice is integral practice for martial arts, so that intuition is also there to be able to read what's going on around us. So this is why it's such a combination. So I work with organizations on critical thinking and mindfulness and all of that, where mindfulness becomes the foundation of practice for us to be able to think critically about things and to gain the space to do that. So Allison, just if you just expand your hand like this, if you don't mind, if you just spread your hands like this, and then now that you're relaxed, if you jiggle your fingers, you should be able to see your jiggling fingers through the peripheral vision, right? Now, if you're angry, you'll never see that, because you're going to be very focused and limited. And so imagine that when you're living on a day-to-day sense of anxiety, fear, anger, just that slow burn is there, you're always compromised, because you're not able to put things in a better perspective.
I love that. That's so true. And that word compromised, again, affects every part of your body and your life.
Yes.
So I'm very sad, because we have come to the end of our time together. And so I'm already planning in my brain a little future thinking here. The next time I'm having you back very soon, because we have a lot that we can cover to help manufacturers be more mindful and more present, more intuitive, and really, really bolster their success with these simple things. But simple but powerful. So before I let you go, is there any one thing in this episode that you might want to leave with the person listening or watching this today?
All I say is just take a deep breath and say observe, and see what happens from there. And then just keep in mind of that simple little practice, which takes 5 to 7 seconds to do.
Right.
Say observe. And doing that with intention, willfully, is what then stops the thought process. So you gain perspective.
Oh, you are quickly becoming one of my new best friends. I cannot thank you enough for spending some time with us today, and for the work that you're doing in this world. So please come back soon.
Please invite me. I'll be there, Allison. Thank you. It was such a pleasure talking to you too, and a person who's already in the practice. That's wonderful.
Yes. Well, and for you listening or watching this, I want you to know that we at Manufacturing Masters are very mindful of you. Everything that we do, whether it's our experts like Lalith, bringing you videos for quick wins and best practices, you are on our minds every single day, and you are why we even exist. So we want you to be successful. We want to equip you to be as successful as you can be, and really to take control of your life, of your situation, and show up and not be the leader whose hair is on fire, but to be the mindful leader and to really enjoy all this wonderful stuff that you've built and that you build every day. So we just want to say thank you, and we will see you next time.
If you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.